Software automation, what is it? It's a lot more. It's more simple than people think, but the audits is the important piece. The audit and compliance, and actually knowing what's being done, and automating processes in the correct way, so to actually have thought about every nuance around why you're automating something, and essentially what it looks like once it's been handed over is important. In a very basic format, is if you think that as people we work in groups, and different people have got different training, and different experience, and they've got permission to do different things, and they can either complete jobs that they're given, and everyone's got lots of different jobs that they do, as in complete it and that task is finished, or they get to the end of what they're allowed to do, their decision tree they're allowed to follow, based on the permissions that they've been given, and it needs to be passed to someone else because that's now out of their level of capability and experience. And it's exactly the same for a robot. So software automation tooling, we're essentially masters of replication, and we're specialists in the NHS, so we understand your world, and different partners have got experience in different areas. So if you roll that back and you think that a lot of the work that people do, to a greater or lesser extent, you've already made the decisions around what you're going to do and how you're going to do in advance of actually doing that job. Because if I see filing of bloods or recalls or registering patients, there's an approach that you follow, and that approach we call a decision tree or a workflow. So if you see a particular result or something that needs filing or coding, if you see that code, it needs to do that, and it needs to go to that person. Or if you see some free text over here, then it's got to follow a different rule and someone else has to look at it. And it's exactly the same with software automation. So we install a robot, essentially, which is a piece of software. It's not a physical piece of software. It's not a physical robot. It's a piece of software that lives on a laptop or a PC. Doesn't make a difference. That can be sitting at practice level, at Fed level. It could be hosted. Again, Sandra will cover all that stuff off with you later around how it's actually delivered. But in a very basic concept, it lives there. It's got its own username and password, which is really important because that forms part of the audit trail. So it will have a username and password for EMIS or System 1. And then you'll have the choice of, does it turn on and off by itself, or do you want to turn it on and off and tell it when to start and stop? But essentially what that robot is capable of now is capable of logging into your systems, and then we drop a decision tree into there. This logic that we're talking about, the rules it's allowed to follow in order to do a particular task. So it can fire up in the morning for filing negative bloods is one of the workflows that you're going with through us. And so on a high level, it will load itself up, it will turn on. I'll share something in a moment for you to look at as well, if we've got enough time. It will turn itself on, or you turn it on, and it will go through the bloods. It will pick out what's normal or abnormal, and then based on what's classed as normal within the realms of what's been signed off by your clinicians that they're happy for it to file, the sets of rules around there, what checks it's going to do, whether it needs to come out, look at different results, check the record, come in and come out and do various tasks. It will complete the filing of that normal blood, or it will triage to a clinician and say, no, that's not for me. That's for whatever reason hit a marker that says it needs to be seen by a clinician. And you can apply that same logic to pretty much every workflow in primary care, in both clinical and the administrative clinical and administrative tasks. Everyone follows rules to a greater or lesser extent based on the permissions that they've got. Now, EMIS and System 1 are essentially databases. They're dumping grounds of information where all the information is stored, and most of the work that everyone does is driven through those systems. So we've become the robots, because if you sort of take a step out and think about it, if you already know what you're going to look for and why you're going to look for something and what you're going to do if you see it, but you've got to click a keyboard and a mouse around a database to go and follow that decision tree, is like we're essentially become like robots. Software automation tooling uses a keyboard and a mouse. So if you go back to what I said at the beginning, you've got a piece of code that's fit for purpose for the NHS, which is really important. DPIA, data sharing agreements, SIA, all in place. Built in a very specific way, so there's full audit trails, it's compliant, all error handling factored in. Living on a machine with an audit trail that can log in and out at different times of the day and dip into repeat prescriptions, filing of bloods, normal or abnormal, recalls, health checks, queue risk, registering, deregistering patients, whichever workflows that you've decided that you want to automate. I know you're on a journey with Suffolk and you're going to start to do more and more and more with an audit trail. So if you think you've got this in the next 6 months, year or year and a half or 2 years, however long it takes, you will have robots in the background, or you could have robots in the background automating multiple processes to a greater or lesser extent.